On January 18, 2022, in a quiet neighborhood outside Portland, Oregon, 21-year-old Emily Carter woke up to a sound she would never forget. 3 soft knocks, precise, evenly spaced, like someone tapping with their knuckle right beside her front door. She checked her phone. 3:17 a.m. At first, she thought she imagined it. Her roommates were out of town, no expected guests, and outside, the street was empty. But then, the knock came again. This time, just one. Emily slipped out of bed, pulled on a hoodie, and walked toward the living room. She whispered to herself, "It's probably nothing." Yet her Ring doorbell camera was already recording. When Emily reached the door, she didn't open it. She only looked through the peephole. The porch was empty. But when she checked the Ring app on her phone, there was a motion alert from exactly 3:17 a.m., and the notification preview showed a pale hand resting against her front door. Emily opened the Ring app with shaking hands. The video loaded slowly, far too slowly for her comfort. Finally, the footage appeared. At 3:17:04 a.m., a pale hand slid into frame. Long, thin fingers pressing lightly against her door, as if feeling for warmth. But the most disturbing part wasn't the hand. It was the angle. The camera was mounted high, pointed downward. To reach it, a person would have had to stand directly in front of her door. Yet the footage showed no body, no face, no shadow. Just a hand, disconnected, as if it were pressed from someone leaning in from the side of the frame. At 3:17:09 a.m., the hand slowly withdrew, moving backward in a motion that seemed far too smooth to be natural. Emily whispered, What is that?" Then the video glitched for half a second, horizontal lines slicing across the screen. When the image stabilized, the hand was gone. But in the far corner of the porch, something was visible. A shape, low to the ground, still, watching. Emily replayed the footage, zooming in to the far left corner of the porch. The shape didn't move, didn't blink, didn't react to the camera's infrared light. It was just there. At first, it looked like someone crouching, knees pulled to their chest, arms wrapped around their legs. But the longer she stared, the less human it looked. The limbs were too long, the posture too tight, the stillness too absolute. Emily whispered to herself, "What are you?" She enhanced the video. The silhouette sharpened, just slightly, enough to see one detail that made her blood turn cold. It wasn't facing the door. It was facing the camera. Then, at 3:17:14 a.m., the shape slowly rose, not standing, but unfolding, as if every joint bent the wrong way. Emily dropped her phone. When she picked it up again, the video showed the porch empty. No shape, no movement, no hand. Only the quiet creak of the porch steps as something moved out of frame. Emily tried to calm herself. She locked the deadbolt, checked the windows, and turned on every light in the living room. But the house felt wrong, too quiet, too still, as if waiting. Her phone buzzed. Another ring alert. Motion detected, front door. Emily froze. She hadn't heard a knock, no footsteps, no sound at all. She opened the app again. This time the camera showed nothing, just the porch, still, silent. But then she noticed something she hadn't seen before. The doormat, which usually lay flat, was folded upward, as if someone had lifted it and put it back down too quickly. Emily leaned closer to the screen. In the bottom right corner, the timestamp flashed and a faint static line ran across the feed. The same glitch from earlier. Then she heard it, from inside the house. A soft tap, not at the front door, but somewhere deeper, in the hallway behind her. Emily turned slowly, heart pounding. The tap came again, this time closer. Emily stepped backward until her spine touched the wall. The hallway ahead of her was dim. Only the small nightlight near the bathroom cast a pale glow. She listened. Tap. A single, sharp sound. Not a drip, not a house settling. A knock. From inside. Emily whispered, "Is someone here?" She grabbed the nearest object, a small lamp, and inched toward the hallway. Her phone vibrated again. Another rang alert. She glanced down. Emphatic. Motion detected. Hallway. Emily froze. The hallway? But the Ring camera is outside. She tapped the notification. The feed opened, but it wasn't showing the porch. It was showing darkness, static, a blurry shape swaying slightly, as if the camera were inside the house. Emily's breath caught. This isn't my front door. The camera refocused for a split second. Enough to see a pale hand pressing against a wall from the wrong side, as if it were coming from inside the drywall. Emily staggered backward. The tapping was now right behind her. Emily spun around, but the hallway behind her was empty, silent, still. But she knew what she heard. The knock had come from inches behind her head. She stepped forward slowly, eyes fixed on the drywall. The house was old, but not old enough for the walls to make that sound. She pressed her ear to the wall. Nothing. Then, a faint scrape, long, slow, right behind her ear. Emily jumped back, nearly dropping her phone. The Ring app flickered again. Not a notification, just a sudden feed switch. The porch camera cut to black, then switched to a blurry, grainy interior feed she had never seen before. It showed a narrow space, dark, dust drifting past the lens, like the inside of a wall. Emily stared, horrified. In the center of the frame, something moved. A shape, too close, too human, too wrong. A face leaned into view, pale, expressionless, pressed against the camera as if it were inside the wall looking out at her. Emily screamed, and the feed cut off instantly. Emily stumbled into the living room, heart racing so violently she could hear it echoing in her ears. She tried calling 911, but her phone froze, the screen unresponsive, as if something was blocking the signal. Then the Ring app reopened on its own. This time the feed was clearer, and what it showed made Emily's knees weaken. A tight, claustrophobic crawl space, wooden beams, insulation, shifting dust. The camera, whatever camera this was, seemed wedged between the studs inside her wall. Emily whispered, "I don't have any cameras in there." Her voice trembled. Something moved again. A hand, the same pale one from her front door, reached forward and brushed against the inside of the drywall, from the inside. Her living room wall trembled slightly, right beside her. Then the feed tilted, as if the device inside the wall had been picked up and turned. For the briefest second, the camera captured something else in the crawl space. A blanket, a water bottle, and a small pile of food wrappers, all recent. Someone had been living inside her walls. Emily stared at the phone, unable to blink, unable to breathe. The feed inside the wall kept moving, shifting, shaking slightly, as if the camera were being carried by someone crawling through the narrow space. Dust drifted past the lens. Wood creaked softly. Then a faint whisper-like breath echoed through the speaker. Not violent, not rushed, just present. The camera slowly tilted downward, aiming toward a thin wooden plank leading deeper inside the wall structure. And then Emily saw it. Footprints. Small, dirty heel marks pressed into the insulation dust. Human footprints. Fresh ones. Someone had been moving back and forth behind her walls for days, maybe weeks. Her stomach turned as the camera lifted again and pointed forward, toward a small opening in the crawl space leading to the laundry room vent. A vent, less than 6 feet behind her. Emily spun around instinctively. The vent cover trembled. Just once, like someone on the other side had pressed their hand gently against it. She whispered, "Please, please tell me that's not real." And then the vent screws began to turn. Emily stumbled backward, her eyes locked on the vent cover as the screws turned one by one from the inside. She whispered shakily, "Who's there? Please stop." But the screws didn't stop. The cover loosened, tilted, and then slid onto the floor with a soft metallic clink. A wave of cold, dusty air flowed out from the darkness. Emily's phone buzzed violently. Motion detected. Inside. The Ring feed switched again, this time showing the laundry room from somewhere behind the vents. The camera shook, fast, erratic, as if whoever held it was crawling rapidly toward the opening. Emily backed away, her breath sharp and shallow. "Please don't come out. Please." On the phone screen, a pale hand reached into view from behind the vent bars. Long fingers, dust-covered skin, moving with slow precision. A second hand followed. Then a face, the same blank, expressionless face she saw pressed against the drywall earlier, leaned toward the opening. It wasn't blinking. It wasn't breathing normally. It was just watching her. Emily dropped her phone as the figure began to crawl out of the wall. Emily stumbled back toward the kitchen, slipping on the hardwood floor as the figure began to emerge from the vent. It moved slowly, too slowly, as though savoring each inch of its exit. A shoulder slid out first, angled wrong, bones too sharp beneath pale skin. Then its head, tilted, rigid, eyes wide and unfocused, like it hadn't seen light in years. Emily's voice cracked into a whisper. "Please, don't." It paused halfway, its hands gripping the vent edges with unnatural stillness. Then, from deep in its throat, came a faint rasp. A dry inhale, almost a sigh. Not aggressive, not rushed. Just present. Like it was listening. Suddenly, the ring feed on Emily's phone flashed back on. The camera from inside the wall was still active, and now it showed the rest of the crawl space behind the figure. Blankets, food wrappers, a small flashlight, a torn piece of Emily's own mail. Someone had been watching her for days. The figure's hand extended toward her, slow, shaking, as it dragged itself fully into the room. Emily didn't think, she reacted. As the figure dragged itself out of the vent, she grabbed the nearest object, a heavy ceramic mug, and hurled it at the creature's shoulder. It hit with a sickening thud. The figure recoiled, clawing backward, its limbs folding sharply as it scrambled halfway back into the crawl space. Not running, not fighting, retreating, like an animal driven back into its burrow. Emily bolted for the front door, threw it open, and sprinted barefoot into the street. Her screams echoed across the quiet houses, waking neighbors, triggering porch lights one by one. Within minutes, police cruisers arrived, flashing blue lights slicing across the dark road. 2 officers followed Emily inside. The vent cover was on the floor, dust everywhere, but the figure was gone. Only one thing remained. A trail of fresh insulation leading from the vent toward the far corner of the wall, where a small panel had been quietly unscrewed from the inside. Officer Ramirez whispered, "Someone's living in these walls." Emily shook her head violently. "No," she whispered, "not someone, something." Officer Ramirez and Detective Holloway carefully approached the loose panel at the back of the living room. The wood around the edges was chipped, scraped, as if someone had been pushing against it from the inside for months. Holloway pulled the panel away. Behind it, a dark cavity no one should fit inside. A crawl space barely 10 inches wide, but someone had. Inside the narrow gap were the unmistakable remnants of a hidden life. A blanket pressed flat against insulation, 2 empty water bottles, a small battery-powered light, and a stack of torn envelopes all addressed to Emily Carter. Emily covered her mouth. No, no, that's impossible. Ramirez shone his flashlight deeper. Far back in the wall, just barely visible, were handprints. Long, smudged streaks of dust and oil dragging along the studs toward the bedroom. Holloway whispered, "He's been moving room to room, in the walls." Emily shook her head. "He? You think that thing was human?" Before the detective could respond, the officer's radios crackled. "Dispatch, we've got movement in the attic above you." Officer Ramirez placed a hand on his holster, eyes fixed on the ceiling. The attic entrance was directly above the hallway, the same hallway Emily had heard tapping from. Holloway unfolded the attic ladder. Each rung creaked sharply as it extended downward. Emily stood behind the officers, shaking uncontrollably. "Don't go up there," she whispered. "It knows you're coming." Ramirez climbed first, flashlight in his left hand, gun in his right. The beam sliced through the darkness, illuminating dust motes, old insulation, and a maze of wooden beams. Then something moved. A fast blur darting between the rafters. Ramirez froze. "Holloway, there's something up here." The detective climbed beside him. They swept their lights across the space. In the far corner, partially hidden behind old boxes, sat a small nest-like area. Blankets, food wrappers, a cracked phone screen still faintly glowing. But the thing that chilled them most was the handprint on the attic floorboards. A long, smeared print, the same shape as the pale hand from the vent. Holloway whispered, "He's still here." Something shifted just behind the insulation to their right. The attic went silent. A heavy, suffocating silence that made even the dust in the air feel suspended. Ramirez tightened his grip on the flashlight. Holloway raised his gun. Then, a soft rustle came from the insulation pile just 3 feet to their right. Not like an animal, not skittering, not random. Slow, deliberate, like fingers brushing through insulation. Ramirez whispered, "Show your hands, now!" No response. Just another shift, as if something underneath was crawling deeper. Emily covered her mouth downstairs, hearing the officer's boots shift on the ceiling. The insulation swelled upward slightly. A thin crack appeared in the pile, and something pale slid through the gap. A hand. The same long, dust-covered hand seen on the Ring footage. It pressed gently against the wooden beam, not attacking, not grabbing. Feeling. Searching. Holloway shouted, "Don't move!" The hand instantly withdrew, vanishing beneath the insulation like a creature diving underwater. Then the entire pile shifted in a smooth wave, moving toward the far corner of the attic, straight toward a dark, narrow vent shaft, too small for any human to fit through. And yet, the insulation rippled as something slid inside it. Ramirez lunged forward, trying to grab the insulation pile before it reached the vent shaft. Too late. The entire mass collapsed inward, as if something had folded itself through a space no human body could navigate. Holloway shined his flashlight into the narrow vent. It was empty. Just darkness, cobwebs, a draft of cold air moving through the duct. No creature, no man, no footprints. But on the wooden beam beside the vent lay a single object. A small, dust-covered phone, its cracked screen still glowing. Ramirez picked it up carefully. A video was open. He pressed play. The footage showed a tight, dark space, creaking wood, breathing. Someone crawling inside the walls. The camera shook, and for a moment, a face appeared on screen. Pale, expressionless, pressed inches from the lens. Then a voice, a faint whisper, barely audible. "She hears me now." The video ended abruptly. Ramirez looked at Holloway. Is this him filming himself? Holloway shook his head slowly. No. Look behind him in the video. He paused, staring as the realization hit him. There were two shapes in that crawl space. Emily stepped into the hallway below, her voice trembling. "Did you catch him?" Holloway swallowed. "No. And whoever or whatever was with him never showed up on any camera again."